can be very humbling to realize that the sum total of the creation of death arises simply out of a thought. That's all it is. A thought. You know, the hot topic that seems to be at the center of this particular retreat seems to revolve around the idea of death. So what I would like to do is to get very real about this. Something that is spoken of very, very often in here is how you cannot really know in an absolute way anything. The one arena where it is so blatantly obvious to everyone is death. Nobody knows what death means. There is no one that can tell you that they know what death means, absolutely. So the whole focus on the quest into being freed from bondage lies in living in the unknowingness, in the recognition that nothing can be known. And death is the fundamental player of what is called the unknown. And in it there are all kinds of stories that are woven that have all of these seductive powers. But if you look at what they are in being completely real about it, is all they are stories. Stories about the unknown, the unknowable, attempting to create some context in an arena where there is no context that can be created. All of us come together, struggling and efforting to live out of the place of no context. And then in this area where there is such obvious lack of context, there is all this context built around it, and an attempt to work around what these concepts bring forth. So then the question is, what gives birth to the experience in the life of what death is? It's a thought. What is death without relationship with the thought of death? In other words, removing the obstruction, what is creating the blinders, and seeing what is death without any concept of death, without knowing what death is. What do you find? could possibly come to the assumption, well then, it is the thinker that creates the experience and the distraction, all of the hoopla, for that's all it is. Very seductive hoopla story. So then if you really want to go in an honest way, it is to look for the thinker. Look to find the thinker that has created all of the hoopla and see what is discovered. It does not matter how seductive the habits of distraction may be. All that is necessary is to separate out truth from fiction, imagination from reality. This is the only thing that is necessary. This is not a journey for the one who is interested in the middle ground. Not if the hunger is to be freed. The grace that is offered is the very clear and obvious realization of what is mental imaginings and what is reality. It is not subtle. It is not confusing. It is really black and white, actually. When there is lingering in middle ground, there is weakness of mind. There is distraction into imaginings. And there is the resultant experience of fear and suffering. When there is one-pointed conviction, then the self-evident reality is unshakable because it is the truth. Everything always boils down to the same thing. The depth of the hunger to remain aligned with what you have been graced to realize. You can and do get swept back into the maze. But it does not mean that you are left lost. Because I imagine that virtually everyone in this room has come to recognize what is real. The question is not when you are resting in the obvious nature that is untouched by time. It is when forgetting is playing, whether or not there is the falling into behavior patterns like a 2-year-old, or whether there is the holding on with all tenacity to what is known to be real in the face of what is experienced based on the following of the imaginings of mind. It's the grace of free will. It cannot be handed to anyone. That's why it is free will. The arising of every single thought is at the hands of the thinker. When the thinker is searched for, it cannot be found because it is all smoke and mirrors. It builds a fortress, and the seduction is so strong, yet the grace is the imaginary nature of all of it has revealed itself. You have been freed from ignorance. What is graced upon you is free will. The degree to which this is taken to heart this is all that matters. Can be very humbling to realize that the sum total of the creation of death arises simply out of a thought. That's all it is. A thought that holds particular charge. That will build a fortress in a split second if it is fed, and at the same time can liberate everything if the conviction lies in seeking what is real, not necessarily experiencing what is real. Experience is at the hands of the wisdom. But before false experiences fall away, what is necessary is holding on to what you have been graced to know in the face of experience. You know, when weeds are growing, if you mow the tips, it does nothing. They must be pulled from the roots. Relationship with thought. It is nothing more than a bed of weeds. You pull them up and more grow. So you continue to pull them up. How long do you pull them up for? Based on my experience, as long as the body is breathing.